everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of The Latest Thread. Jody's not with us today, but she'll be back next time. So today, we decided to do another mixed bag. And what that means is we pull topics from the different GAMO Facebook groups, things that you are like that you're wanting an answer to or are just curious about. So we just pulled a few of those and hopefully we can find some answers for you. But if not, it'll be fun to just talk about some different stuff today. So let's get started. Sharon's going to share the screen.
Yes, one sec. Here we go. Can you guys see that well?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Excellent.
So the first one is from Elaine, and she posted on the Elevate Owners group, and she is new to the group and owns a Gamma Vision 2 with an 18 throat space machine. She's thinking about adding an Elevate, but she has some concerns. She wants to know about the pros and cons for that size machine. So let's get started. So in other words, she has a few questions all in one post. So let's get started. The first one is in regards to the size of the machine. And, you know, there is something to consider when you have an 18-inch. And that is if you're wanting to do edge to edge, you're somewhat limited to the size of the edge to edge designs that you can stitch out. Mm-hmm. Which essentially, if you purchase a design that was intended larger, the great thing is having an Elevate, you can resize that design. So in other words, I don't think you're too limited with an 18-inch. You just have to roll more and set up, you know, the next rows. That's the only downside for that. You know, that's regarding to edge for blocks. The con is that if their blocks are really large, you may have to split the design in half and only, you know, stitch out one half, roll and stitch out the other after you match it up. But that's not necessarily a con because in reality, depending on what your abilities are with free motion, it still gives you so much more freedom to stitch designs that you maybe wouldn't be able to stitch out, you know, freehand. So to me, there's more pros than there's cons by adding the Elevate to an 18-inch machine.
You know, I have a friend that has a computerized on her Gamma and she has the 22. And I believe that the 22 and the 18 both fit on the same track. So, you know, it's kind of like the saying for any like sewing machines or long arm quilting machines, like you'll know when you're ready to upgrade. Obviously you're thinking about an upgrade right now, so you know what that process is like, but the same process applies to upgrading the size of your machine. If you stick with the 18-inch for now and then decide down the road you want to have an extra 4 inches, oh, it would just be nice to just have that little bit of extra space, then the 22 is still small enough for doing your hand-guided work, but it just gives you a little bit more room for some of those patterns. My very first machine was an 18-inch and all hand guided. I didn't have it computerized at all. And you just have to know the size of your throat space. Like Ava said, you know, knowing what size of patterns you can quilt out on it. If you're doing pantographs by paper, you know, and you do get used to it. And it's amazing how creative you can get when you have to utilize the little space that you have. So double check with your dealer that you can upgrade the size of your machine down the road if you want to. And then that could be something you could, you know, just kind of put in your back pocket for later.
Anything you want to add, Karen?
Well, yeah, I think the Elevate on an 18 would be awesome because it's like a race car to me because I have a 26-inch and I don't know, the 18 for hand guided is like, whoop, whoop, you know, it's super quick. But like what you were saying, Sharon, I have a 26-inch head and I still have a sweet spot where I do my best quilting. So even though I have all this room, my hand guided falls in that. This is where it's best. So yeah, just
that's true.
Yeah, and the Elevate resizes the patterns automatically. I think Ava had mentioned that earlier. So that's a win-win, you know.
Okay, so the other part of her post was, can you purchase and download digital files from any other distributor with the GQP format?
No. Not the GQP format.
No, you cannot.
But go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, Gamble used to be the QLI format. So all the other distributors out there sell QLI, and the Elevate Creative Studio and the Pattern Cloud will read the QLI and then transfer it to GQP. So,
yeah.
Okay, so in the last part of her post is, can you resize and save a digital pattern in the software that comes with the Elevate? And the answer is most definitely yes, because you have access to Creative Studio and always the newest version. Right now we're on 7.3. And you definitely can resize a pattern in Creative Studio. As we talked about earlier, you can also resize directly on your Elevate tablet, depending on what it is you're looking to do. But not only can you save digital patterns in the software, but you can also draw your own and digitize your own patterns. So by you having access to the Creative Studio, I mean, it's just a whole nother ball game, because it's, number one, versatile. Number two, it's fairly user-friendly, depending on where you are with your computer skills, but it's super easy to learn. And if I say that, I'm not a computer person, so I feel comfortable using it after, spending some time with it. So you have so many options, and it allows you to use, hopefully, to elevate your adding, in so many more ways. So.
Well, I always laugh because I'm not a Statler user, but I'm a very heavy CS7 user. Yeah. Well, 7.3. It doesn't roll off the tongue like CS7.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah, I think it might be just important also to add that resizing and saving a digital pattern in the software, I mean, yes, in Creative Studio, you have those capabilities, but just know that on the tablet itself, you can resize the pattern itself, but you can't save a resized pattern in the Elevate tablet. You have to do that in Creative Studio. So that's the only thing I thought maybe we should just clarify, but there's lots you can do with that Creative Studio for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we're ready to move on. Okay, this question is from Bobby, and she has Gamma Vision 2. It has the 3 bars that I load the top on the bottom bar, back on the top and middle bar, but I see a lot of quilts loaded and they say they float the quilt. How is that loaded? And she would like pictures because she wants to make sure she keeps it straight. So in other words, we'll get her a couple answers in just a moment, but essentially what she's saying is that she's doing a full load where she utilizes all 3 bars. And here Sharon's sharing a picture where you show the quilt top being floated. And what that means, only the backing is pinned and the batting and the quilt top are just basted usually across the top, and then the sides as as you're working. But using the gamma clips, for instance, is a great way of assuring that even with this floating method, you have control to keep your quilt straight. and everything confined to that area that you're working on. So that's a great way to utilize those Gamma quilt clips.
Yeah. And we do have in the, especially the live event, Quilting with Confidence that's coming up. I'm a little excited, but but we have a whole class. It's called Fabulous Fixes. And we share so many different ways to float and load and different tricks, even while floating a quilt. So that's just a little tidbit there.
We float all of our edge to edge quilts, but we don't do it without those quilt clips. A huge difference in keeping them straight, like Ava said, and they're not expensive, and they don't break your pinky toe when they fall on your toe.
Blood bruise you like the magnets.
And you don't have any risk of sewing over them like a pin.
Yeah,
because that's what I did before I had the quilt clips. Was I just put some of those loading pins, those corsage pins in across the belly bar, but you have to remember to take them all out, and if you miss one, then oops.
And you no longer have all the holes across the shirt from the pins in the belly bar.
Yeah. And the other thing that's nice about the quilt clips is they come in 2 sizes. So I know several people that own them for different brands of machines because the bars are different widths. And so we have 2 because we have a couple different frame sizes to accommodate those. But that means that other machine owners can still use the quilt clips on their machines successfully. So they're awesome.
And I'd just like to summarize in regards to her question, the reason why there's different methods of loading, because I just want to throw out there's really no right or wrong way between the 2 methods. People do it, number one, because they were taught to load a certain way. And as we all know, if we're told you must do that, you usually stick to that for a long time. And so
I'm a rebel. Yeah.
But, people have different preferences. The main goal is, as she asked in her question, to maintain that the quilt stays, as square as possible. That ultimately is the main goal. But, some of us, including myself, I like to, as I roll the quilt, be able to just lift up that batting and that quilt top, smooth out the backing, just it's a thing where I think, I might get puckers otherwise. It's in my head. But so for that reason, there's no black or white. It's literally a personal preference. So
yeah.
And I don't float at all. So.
See, and that's a perfect example of it, right?
Yeah.
Even on your edge to edge, you don't float, right? Sorry. Even I was just, you go ahead. No, nobody wants to talk.
I was just laughing out loud. So you had something to say. So
I was just commenting on what you said because you, I was just confirming you actually will do a full load on even your edge to edge, right?
Yeah, I do a full basted load. Yeah. So, and that freaks some people out. Like if I film myself doing it, and I say send it to the client or whatever, and they see all that top fabric going up under the roller, they're like, it's gonna pucker, you're gonna get pleats. And I'm like, no, just think about like when you roll up a magazine, all the pages are like this, but when you lay it flat, it's flat again. So it's just the fabric going up under there. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so let me find the next one. Can you see that or no?
Yeah.
The new one? Okay.
Now, this one here is by Andy, and he has an interesting proposition. So he's wanting to know if anyone ever has added borders to a top on the Longarm, and he was thinking about loading the back, centering the top, and adding the top and bottom borders with his channel locks on. In other words, like a quilt as you go piecing. And then after it's all quilted, turn it and add the side borders. So he just wants to know if that's something he can do, whether or not it's standard practice or just everybody's thoughts on that. Because before he attempts it, he'd love to know if anybody else has tried it before. So, you know how things go through our head, and we think, wonder if we can do that, because we know those long arms are good for a lot of different things. And I think most of us have tried or in the habit of adding the binding on. So that's been done, but adding borders.
I actually taught for a while a class called Piece and Applique on the long arm. And
Mm-hmm.
you can totally do it. It takes a little finessing to get everything nice and flat, but you have to remember that whatever you're stitching on the front is also stitching on the back. So like if you're like, I did a stacked just strip pieced background for my class. So yeah, you have seams stitched down the back. And if you get a little wonky in your seam, you're going to get a little wonky on your back. That's the only thing that you have to remember, is everything that you piece will show on the back. So if you want to go back and ditch it again, then you're going to have a lot thicker lines on your backs. So.
And me personally, I haven't tried this. What I did try to do once was when, because due to my own silliness, I didn't measure the backing correctly, and my backing was too short, and I really didn't feel like taking all of that off. So I figured, if I fold this just right, because like Karen said, that's the trick, it stitches through whatever layer you have on. So I thought I should be able to, if I flip this over, but then your seam goes in the wrong direction. So I've not tried adding borders. How about you, Sharon?
I have never done this. And when I read Andy's question, I was like, I'm not going to be zero help. The only thing I can think of is make sure your backing is big enough, but that's kind of obvious. But I've never done it. I've never tried it. But I am all for people that try to use their long arm machines in new creative ways. There's always something new that we're learning that we can do with them. So Andy, I hope that you post pictures of what you've done so that maybe it can inspire someone else. That's all I have to say.
That haven't done it personally, none of us. But if you visualize having the backing on there with the batting on top, and then have your top fabric, because if you fold it down and then lay on, just like if you were piecing and then fold it back out, you'll have a seam. You essentially will have.
It's not a press seam though, and that's where if you're not careful. Like in the class I taught, when they're all flipping their pieces over and stitching, some of them kind of have that
bubble.
Bubble. Yeah.
It's got that little extra bump there.
So you just have to be really careful.
So if you have a cordless iron, I'm thinking you could probably bring it over and
you could get some steam on it. Yeah, but I wouldn't actually press it.
You wouldn't put any pressure, of course, but you could do some light pressing.
Yeah.
So good luck, Andy. And you may want to post pictures or feedback from others. And we'll move on if we have another question.
We do.
And this is a very common one. Pam asked, and even though it's common, unfortunately for, a frustration level, it happens to any one of us at times. So she's showing a picture. She would like some help where the tiny little knots are in the stitching. And she was kind enough to share a picture, and you can definitely see that knot. And the stitches on the bottom part of that loop, they look perfectly nice. And then you have the knot, and then you have some stitching where the stitches look flat. So there's definitely something going on. And yeah, there's another flat. And it's interesting because it's literally when it's going around that full curve.
What's that Sharon, can you zoom in on the bottom right picture? I just want to see that one.
Sure.
Which I'm trying to do with my face against the screen, but it's not working.
There's more knots. There's a leaf shape there, and there's another
Right here.
knot.
It looks like a little cinnamon bun.
Yes, it does. Thank you. I'm very hungry.
Why do we always have to reference to food items?
Because we are food and deadline driven.
Right. We should eat before we do one of these episodes.
Oh.
Anyone want to get this one started?
Oh, you can start, Ava.
Thanks a lot. Well, I would say, the most common thing is when I see something like that on my own quilt, I'm going to say tension. But that is not necessarily true. It also can have something to do with your intermediate tension, that it's not set up correctly.
It can also be a little lint booger in your in your
bobbin case.
In your bobbin, and you take out like a business card and go under that little arm. I wish I knew what the parts were called.
It's the little bar or the little.
No, I can get a bobbin and show everybody.
It's your backlash spring.
Well, your backlash spring or that little spring arm where you pull the thread through and go up.
The one that you tighten and loosen to change the bobbin tension.
Yeah, that little arm, if you take a business card or a corner, I save junk mail just for this purpose, and run that corner under there, you will be surprised at the little lint booger that comes out of under that arm of your bobbin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love questions like that, because then none of us wants to answer, for the simple reason, not that we don't know how to fix it, but our terms that we're using, our terminology for these parts are frankly embarrassing at times, because
well, I have not heard the term lint booger before.
No, I bet you if I pull my bobbin out and clean it, I'll get one.
Yeah.
But that's when I get knots. It's either the check spring on the tensioner, or I have a massive lint build up in the arm of my bobbin.
Well, and also, anytime lint is building up anywhere in that, whether it's in the housing for the bobbin case or whether it's in the bobbin case itself, you're adding, it changes, because think about it. So if it's in your bobbin case under the disc, it now moves that disc out. So it's no longer in the place where it needs to be. And it's the same if you have all the lint clogged up behind your bobbin case where the needle has to come through. In other words, there's an obstruction, and anytime there's an obstruction, it's not going its natural path, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And that's when you can easily get those knots.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you think that, there's a misconception that the check spring dial is actually a tension dial, and sometimes people play with that, thinking that they're improving their tension, and maybe they're not?
No, they're just tightening up their check spring, and they don't even know it.
Right. And that looks like a check spring.
Yeah, I would
to me.
Check spring first. Yeah.
Yep. So in other words, it's an easy fix, and we don't need to feel bad because, here we're telling you your parts need attention. But you know what? There are so many factors. It comes from one bobbin to the next that can appear, And
even if you're like, if I use, and I'm not a fan of, but the thin cotton threads for my bobbin, I just get loops and I think it's because I have poly in my top, like the poly's spinning faster, and I don't know the technical terms, but
every once in a while it just goes bloop.
Yeah, it just goes wah. Mm-hmm. So if I took the time to fill a bobbin with the same thing I was stitching on the top with, sometimes I have less issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully that helped you a little bit, Pam. I know we talked a little bit round and about on this one, but but essentially, I think we gave you something to check out. Okay, and we have Cindy's post, and she's saying that her backing is sagging on the quilt on the frame in progress. Advice, please. And again, I know Karen mentioned it earlier that, we have a great class coming up here real soon in our Quilting with Confidence online track, and it's called Fabulous Fixes. I think Fabulous Fixes 2. But we go into much more depth than we can here in regards to how you prepare your backing, and we also talk about different options, how to, if you have to seam your backing, which direction it should be loaded, and just all kinds of things. So that gives you a clue already. So in other words, make sure your backing is square before you load it to start, that your seams, if you have them, are pressed open, and that it really helps if you can load them vertically, along with your rollers. That really helps. I'm sorry?
You said vertically. If you load them vertically, you can get saggies.
I meant alongside with your rollers, whatever that is.
Parallel
to your roller.
You know what? I'm still German. I still get those things mixed up, but I have an excuse, maybe.
You're going to use it though, aren't you?
So
now I want to know the German word for horizontal.
I'd have to think. Now you put me on the spot.
She'll have to lay down flat on the floor.
Oh, goodness.
So, those are kind of some of the things that you may want to look into before you, load your.
And even on this question, it's not real descriptive. Is the whole backing sagging? Is one side sagging? Is it just the end of the bolt and it's like this,
This would be a great example of a post where a picture would say 1,000 words.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or like the more descriptive you guys are with your questions in the post, the faster the correct answers can come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because we don't know if it's caused by a vertical seam that is perpendicular to the bar. Sorry, now I'm showing off.
And I would have said, it's this way.
It's this way. But Gamma also has a couple of YouTube videos on loading a backing so that it's nice and square so you don't have that sag. So, and those were done on the free...
The lives.
Facebook lives. Thank you. Yeah. So if you go back on Gamel's YouTube and search through those videos, there's some great help in there too.
Or even on the website, I think if you type in loading backing, I think the website with the owner's portal brings up each video that you can search by.
Perfect. And that's all free stuff, right? There's a huge wealth of information there that's at your fingertips. Mm-hmm.
Okay, was that it or?
Oh, I can go back if you want to add.
This is by Janine, and she is super excited. She says, "Hi everyone, I'm new to this group. I'm going to be purchasing a used Stadler. She will be coming to my home Saturday. I guess it's a girl. Any advice? This is my dream and I still can't believe it's happening. Thanks." So, congratulations, first of all, Janine, for your exciting purchase. Our other gals on the that are the computerized educators, they also have a talk show where they address usually most of the Statler related questions because, we want to make sure that we can give answers that we feel confident about, even though sometimes we're a little bit silly about it. but we do want to give good information. But, in regards to Janine's question, advice, as Karen mentioned in the earlier question that we talked about, go to the GAML website, make sure you sign up to be an owner, to have access to all those videos that are out there. Of course, all the different Facebook groups, because those are available 24/7, YouTube. And then, of course, GAML education, online education. There is many classes that, can be very specific to your needs if you, browse through them. So whether it's free information or whether it's something that you want to pay for to get specific information, there is lots out there. But because we are hand-guided educators, we want to just make sure, that you do know, even though you get in computer, you can still drop the belts. And I also have a Statler and am a freehander, but the best part to me is taking off the belts, do some of the things freehand, put the belts back on, and some of the more intricate designs, I use the Statler. So it's fun to be able to use both.
Mm-hmm. And I think whether you're a computerized user or a hand-guided user, you should get to know your machine and how it runs and the sounds it makes. And like a seasoned quilter, a seasoned quilter will say, "Oh, the bobbin's getting ready to be empty," and a brand new quilter is like, well, "How do you hear that?" You just hear it. So the more time you spend playing with your machine, the better friends you'll be in the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Statler really hand guides so smoothly. It is so nice to use. And even if you are not planning on doing a lot of hand-guided work, you'll find that there are times when it's going to be faster for you to just do a little bit of ruler work or a tiny little meander background stipple or something like that, to just have a couple of things in your back pocket that you can pull out and go, okay, I can do this here, rather than spend the time that it's going to take to set it up for the Statler to do it. So it's nice to have the options to do both. So don't be afraid to play with it and press the buttons. And I wanted to mention, Ava mentioned the show that the Statler users have, and it's called The Digital Diary. I'm sorry, Ava, I'm not sure if you meant the name of it, but I didn't hear it. So it's called The Digital Diary. And so there's going to be a lot of stuff in there that you'll be able to glean for your new baby. So congratulations.
Yeah, and first and foremost, have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Always have fun. Otherwise, why do it?
I think she's excited. I think she's going to.
Yeah, I can't believe she only used like one exclamation point.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, at least 3.
At least 3.
Okay, but hang on. She's got 1, 2, 3. She's got 4 all throughout. So.
All right, Sharon, you have texted with me. You need that.
That's true.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so I think that's all the questions we had for today. Please remember, we are always, looking for new topics in general. And I don't know if you want to mention about, Sharon, you put out a call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are still looking for more guests to join us on the latest thread to share your quilt with us so that we can share ideas for quilting with you. Mm-hmm. So you can email them to me at sharonblackmore@gaml.com. Maybe Karen, you can add a little thing on the screen for that. Just email a picture, a nice straight flat picture of your quilt, as flat as possible, and a little bit of information about yourself, how long you've been quilting, what you're comfortable with your skills. Are you a freehander? Are you a little bit computerized, or both? And that will really help us fit you into a spot, and then I can set you up with a date and time, and then you get to come on the show and chat with us and see some cool ideas.
Real crazy.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. And we hope we get a lot of interest for that because, people like to see what, the quilts people are making.
And even, yeah, they like this looking at other people's ideas for their quilts, even though it's like a quilt specific design, still stimulates your ideas for other quilts. So.
Yeah, you might see something in a particular shape that reminds you of something of a shape in another quilt, and that's all it takes to kind of get that fire burning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll be looking for that. But in the meantime, I think that's all for today. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.